6.4 item, 9:35 a.m., Civic Spark presentation on fire mapping, and Supervisor Paisley.
So I had the pleasure of working with Laurel Bard this year through Clerk, and she did an absolutely incredible job with her fire mapping, and I wanted the public to have a chance to see how seriously we take our fire mitigation efforts these days. And this is a great opportunity for Laurel to make the presentation. I'm also delighted to share that Laurel's going to be continuing her work in Lake County with Clerk. She's going to be starting that after she takes a little break after all this work. So I want to pass it over to Laurel, and I think you're going to be pretty impressed with the amount of work that she's done and really moving us forward into the next place that we need to be with fire mitigation and hazardous vegetation management.
Thanks, Jessica. I'm really excited to present, and it's been great working here in Lake County for the past year, and I'm excited to continue with Clear Lake Environmental Research Center in the future. My presentation should only take about 15 minutes, so even though there's an hour blocked out, hopefully some of that time can go to getting us back on track time-wise. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me see. Here we go. Can you all see? Great. All right, so this is a presentation that showcases the work that I've done over this past year, organizing the community and sharing data and organizing data about fire management so we can tackle wildfire risk in the future. This first part is a bit of a history of Lake County's fires. A lot of you already know this. This was made for the general public, so Lake County residents at this point are experts on it, but I'm going to go over it anyway. So in the 100 years before 2010, there were 211 recorded wildfires in total in Lake County. Despite this, the wildfires were not as intense and not as all-consuming a concern for Lake County residents. However, this changed between 2010 and 2020. So again, in the 100 years prior to 2009, Lake County experienced consistent small to medium-sized fires. On average, 24 fires occurred per decade, and average fire size was about 3,000 acres. And here you can see the old fire footprints over the past 100 years before 2009 in Lake County in gray. Now we're starting to see fire footprints that start in 2010. They look pretty similar to the ones in the past 100 years, but that's going to change. So the 2010s were the hottest decade in recorded world history and one of the driest in California's history. 2011 to 2014 were California's driest years on record. Here you can see the footprint of the Valley Fire, which happened in 2015. And you all know the Valley Fire very well. It had a big impact on day-to-day life for Lake County residents. And this scrolls ahead to 2018 to show the Mendocino Complex Fire, which became the largest wildfire ever recorded in California, burning a large swath of the Mendocino National Forest. And now we're caught up to 2020. This fire history is current to 2020. Sadly, I'm sure this is going to change this year. But in total, 63 wildfires occurred between 2010 and 2019. Average fire size was about 25,000 acres, which was more than 8 times the average for the 100 years that had come before. In addition, the previous decadal average for the past century was 24 wildfires per decade. Obviously, 63 is about 2.5 times more wildfires than on average occurred in the decades from 1900 to 2009. And in 2020, the August complex here surpassed the Mendocino complex as the largest wildfire ever recorded in California. Over 65% of Lake County's land area has burned in the last 10 years. And as you all know, wildfire is a very serious problem for Lake County. So in 2009, the Lake County government, along with the Lake County the Lake County Resource Conservation District, which is affiliated with both the county and the state, took steps to create a community wildfire protection plan in 2009. But because of some issues with the document, and obviously because of the immediate emergency severity of the wildfire situation, the document remained largely unused for the next 10 years. In 2020, it was obviously necessary to update the protection plan because the county and many community groups felt that it was a necessary document to organize and forward fire management in Lake County. So there were a lot of projects in the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. And that was a strength because it identifies a lot of places where we need to work, but it was also a weakness because there were so many high priority projects that it was hard to know where to start. The 2009 CWPP prioritized projects on a scale from 1 to 3, and over half of the listed projects were listed as highest priority. It wasn't clear how these projects had been prioritized, and as of early 2020, there was no record on what work had been done in the year since 2009, and some of the projects were in areas that had already burned. So in my project, I was tasked with organizing the GIS data and creating new GIS data for the Community Wildfire Protection Plan so that we can all see the highest priority areas in the county and create an action plan that actually goes step by step to address these problem areas. The CWPP, over the time of my service, was transformed into a living document. Action items were visualized, new items were added through community input. I'm not sure if any of you attend municipal advisory council meetings, but I attended a few of those to talk to the community, to explain what I was doing, and to hear their feedback, because community members are some of the experts in this county about high priority areas for fire risk. So information like fire and management history was updated for each item in the CWPP, and items were prioritized based on a number of relevant factors. So here's an example of the 2018 Pawnee Fire, which burned at high intensity through the Wolf Creek watershed. In 2009, the area was designated as the highest priority in the CWPP. The Pawnee Fire did reduce fuel load in the hills, which changed the area to moderate high priority instead. Relevant prioritization factors were proximity to communities, proximity to evacuation routes, fire and management history, fire threat as determined by CAL FIRE, and field ratings by myself. Priority was determined by assigning a numeric weight to each relevant factor and adding the numeric weights together using a program in Python. The final numbers were each connected to a certain priority level. Here's a picture of the code that I used to prioritize this. I'm not going to go over it right now, but this is what it looks like. So this is a visual aid to see how this has helped really focus the highest priorities in the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. So these are the former highest priorities that were established in 2009. And if I scroll over here, you can see the current highest priorities based on my prioritization plan. As you can see, this is concentrated projects around the most populous areas in Lake County, and also areas that haven't burned in a long time, for example, in the Canocti interface. So just to clarify, this doesn't mean that the rest of these projects have been determined not important or taken out of the CWPP. We've just decided that these certain areas are the ones to focus on first. The prioritization scale goes in 8 levels, from highest priority to lowest priority. So many of these priorities are now considered high or moderate high, just not the absolute highest. This is a process to address management areas and steps. And this segues into what's next for Lake County. So one good thing to come out of the wildfire emergencies is that community members have come together to address this problem because it affects everyone. They have formed Firewise Communities, 2 fire safe councils, and municipal advisory councils across the county that are intended to address general risk as well as communities' wildfire protection needs. These community groups and nonprofits like Clear Lake Environmental Research Center are working with state and federal agencies to obtain grant funding and get projects done. With a shortened list of high priority projects and accurate maps of group and agency jurisdictions, which I also worked on, collaboration becomes easier. So for example, here you can see 2 mapped Firewise communities in the Rivieras, and you can see their proximity to the highest priority areas along Mount Canocti. So an example of a project that's being done that addresses this is Riviera West and Riviera Heights have been awarded money from Clerk from a CAL FIRE fire protection grant that was granted a couple years ago to remove hazard trees and treat existing fuel breaks. They initially planned to treat the fuel breaks with hand crews, but in order to prioritize removing hazard trees along the highest priority evacuation routes, which are along Soda Bay Road and which lead to Soda Bay Road, they invested in a hoof crew instead, a bunch of goats, which some of you may have seen, and goats are cheaper than a hand crew, and they're also much cuter, no offense to anyone who works on a trail crew out there. But this is just an example of a successful community, nonprofit, and state partnership that we could do more of now that we have a more organized system for addressing these projects. So adapting to wildfire is going to require strong interagency relationships and creative solutions. Good data management, visualization, and sharing is essential to that process. The Clerk website has more information, but for now, that's all from me.
Thank you very much for that
Questions, comments,
presentation. Anything further, Supervisor Paisley?
Yeah, as you can see, Laurel, working with Clerk, was able to accomplish a tremendous amount of work this year. I just want to talk about the collaborative that we're building with the Risk Reduction Authority that Supervisor Simon and I are really expanding that collaboration right now and building it so that we can support this type of work. As Laurel talked about, just breaking down those silos, increasing the cooperation, engaging the community. This is all the energy and the momentum that we need to continue with the Risk Reduction Authority and all of the other groups that are participating. So this is just one example of the work that we kind of, Laurel and Clerk did most of the work, but through the Risk Reduction Authority and with that input from the people that attend those groups and the Firewise groups and the municipal advisory councils, and now building the Fire Safe Council. So I just want to applaud this work. I wanted to show you actually something tangible that's come out of this year. And I'm not sure if Supervisor Simon has anything else to add, but I'm very, very proud of the direction that we're moving in Lake County. And I'm super proud of Laurel, and I'm so excited that she is going to stay here. And she's also going to help mentor the new Spark that's going to start in September. So very, very excited and proud. Thank you.
Yeah, I think just to follow up on that, Jessica, as you talked about the Risk Reduction Authority, bringing folks to the table to break down those silos and communicate with each other. I know working directly with Laurel, we did the Broom Buster program down in Middletown, which is a lot of hard work, but it worked out well. It was nice to get out and have a community event. But engaging with the community advisory committees, the Middletown Area Town Hall, I know she with Cobb Area Council, she attended everything to gather that information. And what I also appreciate about Laurel was the engagement on the tribal nations throughout the county, and also looking at all of the fire lines and other things we've cut in the last decade here to get those GIS mapped, to understand exactly where the fire breaks are, so we can really get those things down and look at a maintenance program, not just cutting the brakes when the fires are happening and then going back to them when they're going. So maintaining those things and protecting our communities, which I think at this point, most of our communities are surrounded by these fire breaks, how important they are, that we really look at maintaining and, removing vegetation within them, but giving ourselves, a fighting chance with these firestorms that have been happening over the past decade. So I'm excited about the update of the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, so we can have those projects laid out and funding really focused on to make the most impact in those areas. And I completely agree. with the assessment of the Rivieras being a focus that we need to really concentrate on, and I know that's in your district, Supervisor Paisley, and part of yours, Supervisor Scott, that we just continue to protect our community and our individuals as much as possible. So thank you for all the hard work, and I know you're going to continue doing that through Clerk.
Thank you very much for those comments. Supervisor Crandall?
Yes, Laurel, I'm glad you're staying with Lake County. I appreciate all the meetings that you attended with the MACs. I know that you attended 2 times, probably each MAC, because at certain times we didn't have enough people during we started the MAC meetings on Zoom, and so we didn't have enough people. She came both times and gave all the information. And so, yeah, and thank you. I didn't know that she was working with the tribes. That's a good thing. It seems to be a popular topic today, so it's a good thing.
Absolutely. Any further comments from the board? I just want to add that I know that I've worked a little bit with Laurel, especially on the backside of the city of Clear Lake when I met with her and Clerk Will Evans. Really appreciate the fact that you're doing so much to help protect our community and taking this 2009 plan and updating it with the latest and greatest information on how to best prepare to mitigate fires. Fires are going to happen. It's the idea of how do we mitigate them so we can control them to a size that is manageable. When we see these 50,000 acre or even the gigafires, the million acres like in National Forest, it's just not manageable. At that point, you are trying to save lives. You're not taking the fire out. It's just an impossibility. So I hope that we can get this finalized and put to action as quickly as possible. And I hope that Clerk will remain and stay with us to help us get those grants from the state. I think they've been the most efficient group in using those grants. I know that if it wasn't for Clerk, we would not have had that 400-foot vegetation clearing in the east of Clear Lake next to the landfill to help protect the city from possible fires. So I appreciate your efficiency. I appreciate the work you're doing. This is absolutely, it's not a topic that dies during the month of December or January. We're thinking about fires all the time, and this is really important. I'd like to think that I did help Laurel a little bit. I did send her my GIS mapping. I think I taught her what not to do. So at least she made sure to do it the correct way. Your mapping looks impressive. Thank you so much for the work that you've done. All right, let's go ahead and open it up to the public. Anybody wish to speak on this item? Seeing none in the Zoom room and none in the chamber. Again, thank you so much for your presentation.